So this is just 2 minutes or so before 21 hours GMT, which is 22 hours GMT. Sorry, 22 hours British Standard Time, so-called, on Sunday, the 25th of September 2022. And this edition is the BabyAngelGeronimo editions of the KhoodeelaarTV television channel being broadcast on the internet, not on satellite, not on terrestrial, not on cable networks. This is the second edition of today's date. The first one has been about half an hour, 32 minutes, I think, and it has been mainly fully dedicated to exclusive update, original update on the Baby Angel Geronimo. We shall do the transcription of that particular edition and post it on the particular accounts, Khoodeelaar's Facebook account and the Twitter accounts. And we shall show that we are accurate in diagnosing the corruption of the dishonest careerist veterinary scientists, so-called, who actually misled the public in making statements saying that they were supporting Baby Angel Geronimo against the attacks and the vilifications by the depraved DEFRA. We are asserting that they were lying, and they pull various tricks, and they claimed, including claims they made, that they had inside knowledge or contacts with the depraved DEFRA. Some of them were claimed to have known the evil woman Christine Middlemiss. We shall be continuing the original updates, and the next ones will be not in this edition, but in later editions. Next ones will focus on the three judges, High Court judges, and the role they played in rubber stamping the depraved DEFRA. Now we are particularly citing the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran has got the Surah Al-Isra. And Surah Al-Isra we are citing particularly for the representation of the brief representation of the row that Iblis, Satan, had with God. And God's, quote, permission to Satan to do his worst, to mislead human beings. And the expression that has been used in the English translation is delusion or deluded. That Satan would delude his followers into following him in defying God. Now we are saying that Boris Johnson is a disciple of the Satan. In the attacks that he colluded in, the attacks against the innocence and the purity of Baby Angel Geronimo. And that Christian Middlemiss is a Satan. Satan is disciple, Iblis is disciple, as has been George Injustice Eustace. These evil ones colluded collectively with the three judges in the High Court in England who gave the rubber stamps to the satanic decision to attack the most innocent Baby Angel Geronimo. So we shall be putting item by item all the facts in a detailed series of updates of these editions. In the meantime, Baby Angel Geronimo is under the protection of God. And Baby Angel Geronimo is witnessing the overdue degeneration of the depraved morons that have been undergoing disintegration, fragmentation, exposure in various ways. Now, today's topic is the start of the Labour Party's so-called annual conference. This time it is happening in Merseyside, in Liverpool. To what extent the Labour Party allegedly, apparently fronted by Keir Starmer, to what extent that particular location and sighting will reflect the truth about the struggle that is overdue. The struggle that is overdue to permanently get rid of the conservatives from the politics in this country. The conservatives are varieties of manifestations of Satan and evil. Wrongness, badness. Of course, Keir Starmer is a disciple of Satan himself. So, who will replace, in due course, Keir the Satan Starmer and provide the overdue challenge to the corrupt conservatives? We shall be raising this question during the days of the so-called conference, and we shall start this particular reference by making it clear that as far as Angel Rayner is concerned, we have in the last 1 year particularly given her almost consistent kind of support vis-a-vis her confrontation with the Satan Boris Johnson, or satanic influenced Boris Johnson. But previous to that, our experience with Angela Rayner when she was a fronter of the so-called education brief, when Jeremy Corbyn was in the post of leader, our experience at that time concerned the representation we made about Tower Hamlets Council generally, and the Ian Mikado School in particular. We made the representations to Angela Rayner because she was Shadow Education Secretary. Now, we legitimately, constitutionally, procedurally were entitled to and remain entitled to demand answers from her as to why she remained silent to many communications that we publicly posted, giving her information that we alone could give about the disaster that was the Tower Hamlets Council. So if that is the authentic evidence representing Angela Rayner's competence, integrity, intelligence, then she cannot be put to oppose lies Truss, because she too is a woman. So that is a big equation. And we shall be observing her kind of current state of competence, level of competence and integrity. If she has kind of improved in the last 4 years, 5 years, we shall consider the relevant evidence. But we steadfastly defended her right to be responding rigorously and vigorously against the conservative liars that actually compared her with a cheap, cheap image associated with Sharon Stone, Basic Instinct, and suggesting that she was crossing her legs in order to draw attention of Boris Johnson. We reject all of that and we condemn the conservatives, crooks and liars and criminals. So, on principle, on the topical issues, we supported Angel Arena. But overall, Angel Arena remains kind of obliged to deliver the evidence that she can not only beat the conservatives day to day, but she can actually provide the overall, overarching representation as leader that the country needs, the country deserves. So we shall be considering all of those, and we shall be looking back at the 1985 Labour Party conference where Derek Hatton from Merseyside, incidentally, it is Merseyside, isn't it? Merseyside, Derek Hatton was condemned by Derek Hatton and the group that Hatton was effectively leading on the Merseyside Council's redundancy notices being distributed by taxi. And the liar, Neil Kinnock, appeared to be almost choking with conservative concern that a Labour Council was delivering redundancy notices across Liverpool. Kinnock, of course, went on to become one of the most corrupt, crooked thieves of the European Union largesses as a commissioner. And he, Neil Kinnock, we condemn Kinnock as one of the crooks, British crooks, that discredited the idea of the European Union. And we say that Neil Kinnock contributed to the public perception in the Little England against the European Union, which created the necessary mental frame that enabled the narrow vote for Brexit. Neil Kinnock is a crook, as is Peter Mandy Mandelson, another crook. So these crooks condemned the idea of the European Union to a position where it was absolutely seen as representative of corruption and selfishness, etc., etc. Now, the corruption that Nigel Farage has been indulging in, had been indulging in for years as a member of the EU, we are not undermining the importance of the significance or the depth of that corruption of Nigel Farage. But the fact that Farage was a crook that was enriching himself while he was at the same time condemning the European Union does not excuse the likes of Kinnock and Mandy Mandelson becoming crooks themselves and thieves themselves. So the story of Brexit is not just about Nigel Farage, Aaron Banks, and other later criminals that became the leaders of the Brexit bandwagon. The Brexit bandwagon was being created by the likes of Neil Crooked Kinnock, and Mandy Mandelson, of course. And so, if Angela Rayner or anyone else, any competent, really competent woman on the Labour Party front benches, is to really challenge and dislodge Lies Truss, then these people have to admit, thoroughly admit, openly admit, frankly admit, comprehensively admit to the fact that the Labour Party is in a state of total disintegration morally, and that it needs to be totally replaced by a moral party, moral organization. And the condemnation and the owning of the corrupt legacy and the corrupt years in the Labour Party, of the Labour Party, by the Labour Party, has to begin now while they are doing this thing in Liverpool. To what extent are they going to say more than cheap words about the child, 9-year-old child, Olivia, who was murdered in Liverpool by the criminals, gangs? How are they going to, how is the Labour Party going to create a proper policing service in this country? Because the liar, Keir Starmer, was the director of public prosecutions, and he was the one that was in effect making the decisions about most of the prosecutions that the Crown Prosecution Service kind of gave the go ahead for. How many of the criminals that were allowed and have been allowed to get away have been allowed to get away because Keir Starmer was politically, ethically, morally complicit with the agenda of a criminal state and criminal police force? The evidence shows, in my understanding of the evidence, that for at least the last 100 years, there has been no policing in this country. And that both the Labour Party and the Conservatives have, of course, been active colluders in the lack of policing for the majority of the people. So we shall be talking about the policing and why policing has been absent and how to create policing. And we shall be looking at the continuing exemption being given to Lutfur Rahman from prosecution. Because the evidence shows that Lutfur Rahman has committed crimes, not just been partly fraudulent, but Lutfur Rahman has committed crimes while in post as mayor in the name of Tower Hamlets. Lutfur Rahman has committed crimes along with known and identifiable criminals in the population in Tower Hamlets. Dozens of those criminals have shared the proceeds of the theft that they committed of the public purse in Tower Hamlets Council. And Lutfur Rahman's proceeds of crimes must be investigated. They haven't been investigated. And the fact that Eric Pickles had appointed the so-called accountants firm to investigate Tower Hamlets Council's finances did not mean that the accountants and the firm did the necessary audit. They did some audit, but they didn't do the necessary audit. And the fact that the racist Peter Golds, the conservative racist Peter Golds, keeps getting the credit for being the only harmless counselor who has been agitating, who has been demanding, who has been campaigning for accountability by the council, does not mean that that is the truth. Because as a known racist insulter on the record, Peter Golds could not be also a campaigner for accountability. Any campaign for accountability must be based on the campaigner's suitability as being morally fit and proper. Now, over in Pakistan, Imran Khan has been talking about the churs and the gulams. Now, the churs and gulams that have been present in Tower Hamlets as quote leaders or counselors, these churs and gulams are active together with the churs and gulams that have set up business operating the so-called ethnicity linked media. These churs and gulams cannot be expected to deliver action against theft and corruption and criminality. And they cannot be expected to even know what a really serving local council looks like when it is actually engaged in objectively, duly, honestly serving the ordinary people of the borough in Tower Hamlets. So we shall be taking a detailed look at all of these, as well as saying, we told you so. Because when we started talking about Shamima Begum and her two friends, we didn't say Canadian spies operating with British spies, because that is a particular detail that we didn't know had existed in the public domain. It hadn't. That became part of the publicly accessible evidence of the collaboration between the Canadian intelligence and the British intelligence that collaborated in trafficking these children out of London into Syria. And the fact that they did that, we are now saying, also shows conclusive evidence, proof that the whole thing about the Islamic State was a mirage. It was a made up, complete criminal kind of pretext in order to damn the collective image of Muslims and to condemn Muslims as being terrorists and engaged in bad things. So we shall be taking looks at the particular developments or movements on aspects of what happened to Shamima Begum and the other two girls. And we shall be sharing those in these editions. So this is the KhoodeelaarTV television channel under the banner of the Baby Angel Geronimo. The Baby Angel Geronimo is the boy that was born in New Zealand. And his mom, human being who looked after him, Leonie Walker misses him terribly. And the baby angel Geronimo is being protected by God. And he is witnessing the degeneration of the criminals, Boris Johnson and his co criminals, disciples of Satan, deluded by Satan. Because in all of England, when the three judges in the High Court, serially, not together, not in one sitting, but in three separate sittings, they gave the rubber stamp to the depraved criminals, the disciples of Satan, rubber stamping the demonizing kind of statements condemning the baby angel Geronimo. They did that under the influence, direct influence of Satan and satanic influences. Baby angel Geronimo was never ill, will never be ill, and he is the healthiest baby angel Geronimo on the face of the earth. And we love him, and we pray for him, and we pray with him, and we are with him 24/7. And baby angel Geronimo is guiding as the purest witness, guiding all our commentaries, because we are inspired by the truth, nothing but the truth. And when Imran Khan says that the true independence of Pakistan, August 1947, Hakiki Azadi. Hakiki Azadi has not been delivered in the 75 years starting from August 1947. But it is time for Hakiki Azadi to be delivered. Just like the baby angel Geronimo remains the Hakiki innocent. And the Hakiki innocent, baby angel Geronimo, will prevail over all the liars and Satans. As will the Hakiki Azadi of 1947 be delivered. And it will create, in the process of that Hakiki Azadi being delivered, the whole of the subcontinent will undergo not one, but several processes of arrangement, rearrangements. And the names of the criminal against humanity, Narendra Modi, and the criminal against humanity, Shah, these names will be known for the evil that they are and they have been. And there will be a wider realignment of political forces across the subcontinent that will strengthen politicians like Mamata Banerjee and others who are on the fringes now across the country. Many of them in the seven sister states in the Northeast. They have been suppressed for 75 years by the Brahmins, by the Hindutva evil forces. So the evil forces of the Hindutva will be cast aside, kicked out of the positions of power that they have held for decades across India. As for Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina will have as her legacy, Sheikh Hasina will have as her legacy a list as long as 1,000 names, as long as 1,000 words, as long as 1,000 elements, which will be 1,000 curses against her because of the disgraceful way she has insulted the sacrifices of the innocent people who were murdered, massacred, raped, and violated by the Pakistan army as well as by others. Sheikh Hasina will not be remembered positively. Sheikh Hasina will be remembered as a disgrace. And the fact that she had the audacity to abuse the name of the saint Shah Jalal for renaming the Dhaka airport, replacing the name Ziaur Rahman. That will be seen more extensively as one of the most definitive items of evidence that Sheikh Mujib was not and could not be the best Bengali. Because if Sheikh Mujib was the best Bengali, then Sheikh Hasina and other liars would have no hesitation in naming the airport after him. But they knew that if they named the Dhaka airport after Sheikh Mujib, politically, rhetorically, all hell will be let loose, and there would be no peace around the airport name. And that showed perfectly that Sheikh Mujib was, of course, not the best Bengali. And he could not be, as we said before. When there are people, giants like Shere Bangla Fazlul, giants like Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani, how dare these liars deny these giants their rightful place and put on top of them the image of Sheikh Mujib? How dare they? Sheikh Mujib's name could not be the name of the airport. That shows that he was not acceptable. He could not be sustained. So Sheikh Hasina and her parrots, liars, who keep making the exaggerated claims about the superhuman status of Sheikh Mujib, are exposed in their own lying and lies. Anyone else who has been involved in the caricatures created of the real purpose of Bangladesh, now in the context of Imran Khan's slogans, Pakistan ka matlab kya? La ilaha illallah. What is the purpose of Bangladesh as compared to that? What is it? Because clearly, Bengali language was not the purpose of Bangladesh. If it were, then Bengali language would be the main language in use as the most authoritative language in Bangladesh. It isn't. They don't talk about the Bengali language movement anymore. Not anywhere near that, in the sense that they did try, because they used it as a slogan, as a cheap slogan. They knew that the Bengali language movement was not created by the by the conduct or the statement of Ali Jinnah. Ali Jinnah didn't say anything. Ali Jinnah didn't say anything remotely inaccurate or out of order. All he said was express an opinion. The real fighters, it's an international way, in an objective sense. The real fighters for the recognition of a language like Bengali or Bangla were the leaders of the likes of Dr. Shahidullah. Dr. Shahidullah began the movement for Bengali language recognition 50 years, at least 50 years before the liars exaggerated the statement by Ali Jinnah. And those criminals don't mention Dr. Shahidullah at all, thus showing contempt to the truth. And how dare these morons celebrate 22nd of February? 22nd of February is not in the Bengali calendar, you morons. The actual date of that particular shooting was 8 Falgun, you morons. Gulam or Gulam Aqal. 8 Falgun কইতে শরম লাগে না? গুলাম আর গুলাম হল। তোমরা কিতা বুঝো স্বাধীনতা, আর কিতা বুঝো তোমরা বাসা, আর কিতা বুঝো হাসা, আর কিতা বুঝো মিশা। মাখালর মাখাল হল, বেইমানর বেইমান হল। গুলাম, সুর। Dr. Muhammad Shahidullah was a much better educated, learned, ethical and moral person than Sheikh Mujib was. Just compare with Sheikh Mujib, Dr. Muhammad Shahidullah. He was a wise, sage man. So for Sheikh Hasina to pretend that there was no such scholar as Dr. Muhammad Shahidullah shows that she doesn't exist herself. Her surviving family has been engaging in exactly what the Nawaz Sharif family has been doing, what Zardari family has been doing in Pakistan. How many Siloti Gulam ফাইনতে হাসিনার ফ্যামিলির গুলামি তাবেদারি করেন লন্ডন? হাসিনার যে ফ্যামিলির যে প্রপার্টি আছে লন্ডন, ইতা প্রপার্টি খান থেকে আইলো গুলামর ফাইন। গুলামর ফাইনতে ফাও ধরেন গিয়া হাসিনার। আর গাদ্দার চৌধুরীর দাওয়াত দিয়ে খাওয়াইন। আবদাল কুফার চৌধুরী, গুলামর গুলাম হল। তোমরা কিতা বুঝো স্বাধীনতার, কিতা বুঝো হ্যাঁ সেলফ রেসপেক্ট, আত্মসম্মান বোধ, আর ভাষার ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ। ভাষা যদি তোমরা বুঝো, শহীদুল্লাহর নাম হইতে তোমরা শহীদুল্লাহর নাম শুনছেও না। Dr. Shahidullah was a bigger scholar than ক্লিন্টনেও তা গুলাম বানাইছেন। ক্লিন্টনও কিন্তু রেকমেন্ড করিয়াও করে দেওয়াইছেন নোবেল প্রাইজ। কিতা ইগুর নাম? ইগু কিতা সানামারা হলতা না নে? So we shall be talking about the evidence, the history, and the reality, and we shall be recognizing the work of the real people, the real leaders of the people in the place now called Bangladesh, and the betrayal by Sheikh Hasina of the millions of people in the neighboring states, where the Brahmins or Brahmin Hindutva sledgehammer has been being applied against the original residents. And Sheikh Hasina has been complicit, quietly complicit with the Hindutva attacks on the original Muslims in the 7 states and other citizens. The only person in the whole area who has been raising any voice has been Mamata Banerjee. I mean, Mamata Banerjee probably is the second Bengali woman after Sarojini Bandyopadhyay Chakrabarti, who became Sarojini Naidu. These women have been rare, and the third one, so-called holding a big position, the state position, Sheikh Hasina, has a shameful record of silence and complicity, supplication and surrogation to the BJP. Of course, there is the news that has been run across India in the last 24 hours about the BJP in Uttarakhand or Uttar Pradesh, where a local BJP leader's son has been arrested over the death of a woman. Now, the BJP leader, local leader, is quoted as saying that his son is an innocent boy. What is he saying? He's been saying in Hindi, let's say the Hindi quotation. So he's saying in the India Today, the quotation run in the India Today website, this man is quoted as saying, Mera beta Shida Sada Hai. And this victim of the murder, Ankita Bandari, it's happening in Uttarakhand. So they've got a picture of Ankita Bandari in the Times of India that I'm looking at, but I can't share before the camera here. The BJP leader's son arrested, body recovered from Rishikesh Canal. Now, Rishikesh is almost the name of Rishi Deb, featured in the film that has got Pranita Subhash as the lead actress and Manchu as the lead actor, investigating Rishi Deb's murder of an actress in India. That is a fiction. But Pranita Subhash is actually a die-hard BJP supporter in her real life. What would she say about the murder of this woman, young woman. So let's see what the details of Times of India is saying about the murder. Ankita Bandari.
My generation is so cued in with our health. Super into fitness and what.
Ankita Bandari was a 19-year-old girl. She was allegedly pushed from a cliff into the Ganga River by the resort owner. 19-year-old Ankita Bandari, that happened in Uttarakhand now. This is the part of India where the British Raj, the imperialists, kind of used as the play area. Is the Dehradun. And a 19-year-old girl from Pori Garhwal. Now we had Garhwalis coming to our villages. Should come to that another time. And nobody knew where Garhwal was. Garhwal was in the Uttarakhand area in the subcontinent. Now she went missing 4 days ago from a resort in Rishikesh, where she used to work as a receptionist. She was allegedly pushed from a cliff into the Ganga River by the owner, the son of a senior BJP leader and former minister in Uttarakhand, and his 2 employees for refusing to indulge in prostitution with hotel guests. The 19-year-old receptionist was allegedly murdered by BJP leader Vinod Arya's son, Pulkit Arya, who has been now arrested along with 2 other accused. The incident has triggered massive anger in the region, with many launching appeals on social media, etc., etc. Now, this brings to mind what happened in the MC College. The MC College that I attended is, of course, a name full of very high moral standards as far as I'm concerned. The MC College was the scene of the gang rape. And so far, it seems that the gangsters, the rapist gangsters, all connected with the Awami League of Sikh Hasina, have got away. We shall talk about that in due course. Now, in MC College, I took part in competition in 1965. 2 competitions I won. One was the recitation of English poetry. I mean, that was just a competition. Friends, romance, and countrymen. And that is what I read from Shakespeare. And apparently I won. So I got the win there. And I also won the swimming championship in the MC College Pond in the same year, 1965. Some Makhal Fuente, Hoitara investigate Horbaita Hasan Nauda. Ay Makhalar Fuain. Go and investigate. I was a champion. I remain a champion of the campaigns. I shall be championing the cause for justice of the victim of the gang rape in MC College, which I haven't publicly done so far in the way that I shall be doing from now on. So this girl, this poor girl, 19-year-old, imagine, the BJP leader's son was the pimp. He owned the hotel and he was the pimp. And he wanted to force this child, 19-year-old, to become a prostitute for customers in the hotel. Narendra Modi should be prosecuted for fronting such a party. Modi actually should be treated just like Nawaz Sharif and the Zardaris are being treated. Churs and criminals. Narendra Modi and his Shah, thugs. Ankita Bandari murder case must not be forgotten, must not be allowed to be forgotten. Ankita Bandari was one of hundreds, if not more, every year of girls in India that are raped and murdered. And Jawaharlal Nehru's family business of the Congress party is politically dead. Jawaharlal Nehru's clan controlling the so-called the dead corpse of the Congress party are themselves corpses. How can this be happening in India with BJP leaders doing this? I mean, the demand must be for Modi should be sacked and the BJP should be ousted from power everywhere in India. That is what I mean by the series of processes that will be unleashed across the subcontinent. The matlab kiya, Pakistan ka matlab kiya should be extended to the matlab for independence from the British in 1947. Now, that was, of course, a ceremonial event in 1947. It wasn't anything to do with real freedom and independence because the British imperialists, not the ordinary British people, the British imperialists actually did a messy job. And they never looked back. They never actually looked at the consequences of their mess. I mean, the foundation of the British Labour Party, 50 years before the end of the so-called British Empire, British Raj, didn't witness. The founding of the Labour Party was really mainly kind of narrated around the trade unionists and the workers in Britain. And the Labour Party didn't really take any memorable action against the mass murderer Dyer in Amritsar, in Gujranwala. So we shall be looking at Dehradun, Uttarakhand, and we shall be looking at Puri Garhwal, and we shall be looking at the child Ankita Bandari and what her family and survivors and loved ones are going through, and what chance of justice exists, and what role the corrupt Indian media is playing. The world's biggest democracy. Disgrace. The British papers call India the world's biggest democracy. How dare they? Incidentally, there is a piece on every Saturday run by the Financial Times, at least for the last few months that I've noticed, and it's called a lunch at the Financial Times. And what they do is they organize a lunch with a suitably chosen kind of, they think, name, fame, whatever. One of the recent ones has been Pierce Moron. Now, Pierce Moron has not been challenged. When he said, let me see what Pierce Moron said in that piece that they published, boasting about the money. Now, it is completely, I mean, as I said in the earlier edition about the rivalry between Jeremy Clarkson and Pierce Moron. I mean, Pierce Moron, in terms of character, quote, within quote, character, is the kind of opposite side of the same coin. They're not really different. Now, this heading to the luncheon piece that they ran, the Financial Times they ran on the 2nd of September, is headed Piers Morgan. Twitter is for winding people up. Now, that's a stupid summary of Twitter. Of course, a lot of the winding up goes on through Twitter. But we never do that to wind anyone up. Our campaign or our activities as done via the use of Twitter. We have got several accounts on the Twitter, various aspects of the campaigns that we do, never intended to be shallow or frivolous or for winding people up. No way. Now, the fact that Pierce Moron could say that sums him up. That the height of his intellectual limits is achieved when he can wind somebody up, or he can get wound up himself, or wound up. Let's see what, and I'm going to look for that particular piece or particular statement where this woman, I mean, she seems to be, I mean, Pierce Moron has been promoted as a kind of humorous, funny, whatever in that piece. So let's see where that piece is, that particular sentence is. And I shall show the depth of depravity and degradation and kind of degeneration in Pierce Moron's personality and what amounts to his, within quotation, character. This Financial Times in the print edition sells for £4.50 current price, yeah. So the many times the price of the tabloids, say. So she's this woman who has done the piece with Pierce Moron is called Janine Gibson. She's apparently the digital media projects, etc., editor at the Financial Crimes. This is an empty piece. This is an empty piece, morally empty, because, I mean, she is taking part with him in a egotistic promotion of himself. Now, all the things that Pierce Moron has been doing by way of holding positions in the Western media, like in the USA, when he managed to grab hold of the chair left vacant by Larry King, etc. There is nothing, there is no hint, there is no indication that Janine Gibson even understands the role of the media. It is true that she is described as the Financial Times as digital. Let's go to the digital. What is she called? I think they have removed they have on the kind of internet version. They have removed the three words "fuck you money." That is what he was boasting about in the print edition. I'll see if I can find the print edition during this edition of this KhoodeelaarTV television channel to show that the Financial Crimes is really criminal. They have removed the "fuck you money" in order to make him come across better than he is. So Janine Gibson is the FT's head of digital platforms and projects. Now, does it include any morality and ethics? It most certainly doesn't. Because I'll go off the camera to check if I can find that particular piece of the print edition of the Financial Times, which contains that three-word phrase of boast. Well, that particular issue of the paper is not accessible in the short filing system that I checked. So we'll have to look at another time and what they have done is they have removed that boastful swear words, the three-word boast that Piers Morgan was making. And those 3 words I shall say soon. He was saying in that piece that they actually printed, he was saying, fuck you money. What he meant by that, they have now paraphrased and put, he made a lot of money. Now, currently in his contract with the devil, Dirty Digger, Rupert Murdoch with Talk Television, it has been reported that the 3-year contract will bring him 50 million pounds. That is what he meant by fuck you money. Now, of course, Janine Gibson doesn't examine any of the supposed basis for anyone like Piers Morgan being given not only 50 million pounds, but also being the person treated with such seriousness by Dirty Digger Murdoch that he set up the whole television channel in order to allow more on a platform, especially after Piers Morgan was sacked by ITV and from the Good Morning Britain slot. Following Piers Morgan's attacks on Meghan Markle. We don't have to go into the details of that here because the details of that whole thing is already or are already accessible online and otherwise. As head of the media projects, etc., logic would say, rationality would say, ethics and morality would say that Janine Gibson would care to talk about the total emptiness and shallowness of Piers Morgan. Because none of the things that he has been actually doing, either before being sacked from the Daily Mirror and or being effectively losing the platform in the USA following his so-called self-described campaign over gun control in the USA. Moron has not done one single journalistic campaign, let's say. He has not done any journalistic campaign in that he has consistently followed a particular issue and taken the campaign to the point where that campaign has been successful in getting the issue recognized. The fact that he could boast about getting so much money and say, fuck you money, also shows his contempt. I mean, this is the month, this is the period when the UK ordinary people are going through real living crisis, cost of living crisis. No sensitive individual, let alone a self-styled anti-woke journalist, would have the temerity, would have the indecency to boast about themselves getting money that they can show contempt towards. It is such a large amount of money that they don't have to justify why they get that money. So he calls it fuck you money, as if it's his birthright. Now, Pierce Moron doesn't have a birthright to any amount of money. Especially, he didn't have a clue as to what he was going to do after ITB were forced to sack him. He resorted to pimping, effectively pimping his current wife, Celia Walden, in the media, describing various pornographic episodes between them in order to get her pieces read and noticed. And Celia Walden actually has been touting loudly for her husband to be given a platform after she noticed that he was very depressed and very down following his sacking by the ITV. So Janine Gibson in the Financial Times has committed a major crime by behaving as a besotted groupie. Now, why she should feel besotted to this idiot is a mystery, but that is what she comes across as. Why was she given the task to do this lunch with him? Parade. So we shall be continuing examining the bankruptcy of the moral bankruptcy of the financial crimes. And we shall be raising questions about the Lebanese Muslim born woman who is the editor of the financial crimes. Pierce Moran, of course, has taken the side of all the wrong elements. I mean, he has done the stunt like the American Howard Stern kind of stunts during the COVID and has overhyped his own concern for the nurses. That was a staged display. If Pierce Moran had any respect for the nurses or other hardworking NHS workers, he would not use the phrase fuck you money to describe the uncountable amounts of money that he apparently gets given. For what? Janine Gibson doesn't go into that mystery as to why Pierce Moran, of all people on the face of the earth, gets given unctuously dismissed as fuck you money. Now, if people like Pierce Moran being rated and promoted and given positions as leading media policy deciders, is it any wonder that the media in Britain is not reliable, dependable, and doesn't tell the truth and doesn't serve the needs of the truth to the public that badly need the truth about society being told by the media? It's like a fan club. The Janine Gibson piece is like a fan writing a fan letter for her pop idol. Apart from Jeremy Clarkson, Pierce Moran is the most outrageous self-promoter going in public in the UK at the present time. And nobody can actually locate any substance to justify Pierce Moron's assumption that he can have an opinion about everything, even though his opinions don't have the substance of truth and fact and rigor. Pierce Moron is a fan and supporter of Donald Trump and has been a supporter of Donald Trump for years. How has it been possible? I mean, anyone who knows Trump, anyone who has met Trump over a shorter period than Morgan has done, has had no difficulty in finding that this man is a complete and utter disaster, utter liability, and a completely dishonest individual, disgraceful individual who could not be described anywhere near as being acceptable company. What is the mystery of Pierce Moron sucking up to Donald Trump for all these years? Pierce Moron, of course, specializes as the hater, the chief hater in Britain of Meghan Markle. And given the evidence of the piece by Jeremy Clarkson on the Saturday in The Sun, it is clear that the rivalry between the two of them has now extended to the rivalry as to which one of the two can claim to be the most anti-Meghan Markle agitator and racist in Britain. Because none of the things that Pierce Moron has said against Meghan Markle, or none of the things that the others have said, and Jeremy Clarkson is a new entrant to that whole arena, none of the things that they have said against Meghan Markle really adds up. That is to say, it's not really serious stuff. And there is nothing that can be condemned or rated as seriously bad on the part of Meghan Markle. So, what it comes to is that they have been using the name Meghan Markle, ingratiating themselves to that image of their being patriotic Britons, doing the favors to the monarchy by attacking a black woman or a woman of mixed race birth who has had the temerity to actually convince a member of the British royal family to marry them. I think that is the summary of their particular narrative and agenda. That they are part of the army engaging themselves voluntarily in the service of the monarchy because they fear, justifiably, they fear that Harry Windsor will remain a thorn in the side of Brian, that is to say, Prince Charles III. Sorry, King Charles III. His son has now become Prince of Wales. So Harry, by all accounts, has got enough information, as he believes, according to the publications, enough information about the role Camilla played in destroying his mother's life. And that is something that Brian, that is King Charles III, actually believes is true, because Harry knows what he knows, and he could not get closer to the facts and the evidence. He saw, however young he was when his mother was murdered, he saw the various moments of distress that Diana was going through. And he's genuinely upset about his mother being given that kind of treatment by Charles, who was supposed to have been married to her. So, whatever Harry has against Camilla is not going to go away without there being a big, big, big gib. And Brian, so far at least, is not showing any signs of giving. That is to say, conceding to Harry that he did really let down Diana. Because whatever relationships Diana did have after the divorce from Brian were relationships that she was forced to have as a way of survival. And as the reflections and the contextual kind of understanding get more mature by the passage of time, Harry's understanding of Camilla and Harry's understanding of Charles's betrayal of Diana get more serious by the episode. And what is happening with the likes of Jeremy Clarkson and Pierce Moron being engaged in a religious kind of way of hatred against Meghan Markle is that this will not end with either Moron or Clarkson or anyone similar to them coming across as being vindicated by the truth. They will come across as even worse racists by the end of it than they were at the beginning of their attacks on Meghan Markle. As for Meghan Markle and Harry and their tactics, of course, we are not anywhere near being privy to any of their policy discussions or analysis. But given the number of rulings in the court system, it is clear that they have had better success in coming across as vindicated against the Fleet Street media than the publicity otherwise, the hate campaign against them would have suggested. Which means that if the likes of Clarkson and Morgan, if they don't stop, they will face even worse defeats in the arena of the courts, if not necessarily directly against or in contest or contests with Harry and Meghan. So we shall stop there for the time being as far as that item is concerned. We shall move back to Pakistan and Imran Khan. Now, Imran Khan has been talking lately about his finding the evidence of at least 4 of his political opponents conspiring to murder him. And this is something that he has been talking about in the last 48 hours, more than he had done before. Now, of course, political assassinations are unfortunately more common than they should be. The fact that Imran Khan is talking about it in the way that he has been talking about it has got an additional kind of element to it, because he has been saying that his engagement, his campaign is for the Haqiqi Azadi, the truly independent Pakistan, and that he would not be afraid of dying for the cause. He would rather die fighting for a Haqiqi Azad Pakistan than he would live by allowing Pakistan to be enslaved. He has made it very clear. Now, none of the Hindutva kind of fronters in India, nor the enemies of Imran Khan in Pakistan itself, and most certainly none of the so-called leaders in Bangladesh, none has come anywhere near to making such a plain, clear statement, moral statement. And I don't remember Sheikh Mujib making any similar statement whatsoever. In fact, as I said before, observing Sheikh Mujib very closely for very intense 3 years, I didn't come across one single statement anywhere from Sheikh Mujib that resembled a statesman-like speech. Now, everything about Sheikh Mujib that Sheikh Hasina has been having constructed as the Superman has been being done post facto, after the events. So these are hearsay, not the actual truth of the account of what happened. None of the speeches that Sheikh Mujib made at the events in Paltan Maidan or anywhere else came anywhere near the courageous statement and speeches that Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani made. In his speech from the Paltan Maidan in January 1970, Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani pointed his lathi, his stick, to the governor's house where Munem Khan was officially resident. And he said in Bengali, "Oi Munem Khan, aye tor baper shat diole." And face, I was there, right in front of the stage. That was after Asr Namaz. After the Asr prayers, that was the gathering. Hey Munem Khan, tor baper shat di. That was Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani. Nobody else spoke like that. Nobody else had the moral foundation as Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani did. And there is nobody, absolutely nobody, among the so-called opponents of Sheikh Hasina, active, so-called allegedly active in Bangladesh today, that has got anywhere near the length or the depth of that kind of speech and challenge aimed at Sheikh Hasina. And the political manifesto, if you like, the actual contents of what they are offering, is absent because there is no manifesto. What the opponents are saying is going through the motions. That is to say, they are coming across to the ordinary people that they are actually saying something critical. That's it. None of these people is really getting Sheikh Hasina, where she is the most weakest, the truth about the events of 1971, truth about the events before 1971, and truth about the events after 1971. They say, these various pretenders to the cause of Bangladesh independence, they say Shadinotar Chetona, but they don't have the Shadinotar Chetona themselves. Most of the consciousness about independence is absent from most of these people who are really interested only in getting themselves a benefit one way or the other by talking about Shadinata, not really fighting for the values of an independent, fair, and just society. I mean, that is in contrast with what Imran Khan is still engaged in doing. He is really still engaged in the battle for a just insaf and Hakiki Azad Pakistan. I mean, I have outlined the limitations and shortcomings and the parts that are missing from Imran Khan's speeches. But if we take together the bits that are present in his speeches, even those limited pieces will amount to much bigger substance for the country, for the people, than all the combined speeches that have been made by Sheikh Hasina and our so-called opponents. In 1972, Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani and his supporters published a very, very kind of short bulletin, printed bulletin. That was 1972, long before any internet, any online, whatever. And that bulletin was smaller in shape, in design than any of the magazines. And it was called Hawk Kota. Hawk, of course, is truth, and Kota is the saying and the word. And the Hawk Kota in 1972 contained mainly exclusive, original insights about what was going on in the government. And everything that was said in Hokkota was the truth. And it came as vindicated predictions. Many of the things that were observations, not factual assertions, but observations about what will happen, did come about later. And as I said yesterday, it was absolutely appalling that anyone should have harmed or hurt Sheikh Mujib. Despite his limitations, some things that I have outlined and updated on, he did care for the people, and he did care for the people, and he should not have been hurt. So whoever decided to do the final kind of hurt to Sheikh Mujib, committed crimes, not one crime, several crimes. That is absolutely what I believe in and I have believed in. However, I also believe what was happening for the 3 years before this happened. And what was happening in the country before this happened was significant contributors to the environment that was created for exposing the Sheikh, making him so vulnerable. Because when they attacked him, he was defenseless. There was nobody to protect him. How did that come about? If these people, there are now many of them are now kind of making subsidiary careers after subsidiary careers by claiming that they were well-wishers of Sheikh Mujib, that they were his fans, that they were followers of Sheikh Mujib, and they were followers of independent Bangladesh, and they were supporters of Bangladesh. If all of these things are true, how was it? How was it that Sheikh Mujib was left on his own to be murdered in that way? Where were these people? Surely there should have been not one. There should have been batches and brigades of people guarding him. But there was nothing. Bad enough, yes. But even worse is, for a long time after he was murdered, there was nothing in the country publicly visible showing that he was being mourned. How come? Where were the mourners? Where were the people, fans and followers of Sheikh Mujib? Where were they? There was no demonstration, and there was nothing in Bangladesh. Nobody was taking any risk to defy whoever they were afraid of and to register that they really did object to Sheikh Mujib being murdered, that they wanted justice for Sheikh Mujib. How come? Who were these people? Where were they hiding? For a very long time, this country was empty of any public mourning for Shah Mujib. So this was the man who was the physical symbol. As I said, despite the various limitations, physical symbol over a very good 10 years of frequent harassment, by the fascistic regime. And he alone went to jail with the frequency that he did do. He had, of course, limitations, but so where were these people silent for years and not saying a word about Sheikh Mujib after he was murdered? Where was where was Abdul Kuffar Chowdhury, who invented himself years later as a mythical, mythologized, most secret, closest confidant to Sheikh Mujib, which was a lie? Abdul Kuffar Chowdhury was no confidant of Sheikh Mujib. Abdul Kuffar Chowdhury wrote, he was a jobbing writer, and he wrote a jobbing piece of attack against Sheikh Mujib because he was being paid to do that, paid by Hamidullah Chowdhury in the Purbadesh in 1970. Abdul Kuffar Chowdhury, where was he on the night that Sheikh Mujib was murdered? How long before he came to know about this? And how did he account for this? Dozens of people that made their careers and millions by claiming associations with Sheikh Mujib were silent, absolutely silent and quiet. And they didn't have one single thing to say in recognition of the years of harassment that Sheikh Mujib accepted for the people. So these are the realities, these are the truth. Nobody was actually showing Shadinotar Chetana, not after the murder of Sheikh Mujib and not before the murder of Sheikh Mujib, because when these people, ordinary people, were hungry and dying, any numbers, to the point where women didn't have the necessary clothes for their modesty. Where were these people with the Shadinatar Chetana? How many of them offered modesty and substance to these women, these children? Where was the Shadinatar Chetana? If you look at the parades of the several so-called ministers in Sikh Hasina's cabal, you don't see any Shadinatar Chetana in their behavior. You don't see anything that takes into account any of the real events, any of the real events that took place in 1971, where the fascists in the army were massacring the people, innocent people, civilians. We know, we came to know later. We heard during 71 that things were happening, but we did not hear anything like the large scale on which they were happening, which only became public after December 16th, 1971. So, where are these people showing Shadinatar Chetana in the Sikh Hasina cabal? How many families of the women that were violated and raped and murdered? How many families of the children murdered, massacred? How many other families and individuals that were being murdered and massacred by the Pakistan military fascists? How many of them have been truly cared for and cared about now? And in what way? What are the examples? What are the steps that Sheikh Hasina has taken or any of the cabal has been taking? Sheikh Hasina is, of course, unfit, morally unfit, ethically unfit, empirically unfit for the responsibilities of delivering a free Bangladesh, a just Bangladesh, a fair Bangladesh to the people. That is number one. Number two is, of course, she's unfit to make any claims that she cares about the still uncounted numbers of people who were murdered, raped, massacred, gang raped, whatever. And this cycle goes on, cycle of emptiness goes on while the opposition, so-called, the opposition relies on default opposition, let's say. What do I mean by default opposition? I mean that the opposition really doesn't really want to risk its own kind of interests. But once some other people, like some former military personnel and some others who are not kind of friends of Sheikh Hasina, let's say, the opposition wants to have those people carry on agitating, and it hopes that their agitation will lead to some kind of eventual downfall of Sheikh Hasina's regime. Well, that will not happen, because the moral the moral fiber the moral fiber of the country, that is the subject of many of the claims that it is a free country and the Shadinatar Chetana is being served to the people. The Shadinatar Chetana cannot be served to the people by parrots, by careerist opportunists who use phrases and words in order to impress whoever they think the audience is, so that they will get the credit for making these kind of chanting these slogans. When people go to the court, when people get on the transport system, when people get on the boats, when people go into their homes and walk about in the streets, what kind of Shadinatar feeling do they experience? That is the real question. There is no Shadinatar feeling for most people who are hungry, most people who are homeless, most people who can't go to seek justice because they can't afford it. A free country, a country that is supposed to be delivering freedom, the fruits of freedom must be a country that allows those who have been unjustly treated, badly treated, due and urgent access to remedies through the judicial system. No such system exists in Bangladesh. Similarly, in terms of health, so many people are dying, so many people are rotting in bad health. centers and locations and homes, that it should be treated as a crime against the claim of a Shadinotar Chetona. Shadinotar Chetona is not a slogan. Shadinotar Chetona is a reality. Where on the streets of Bangladesh do the people experience Shadinotar Chetona? Shadinotar Daitto, Shadinotar responsibility. When Sheikh Hasina condemns people for criticizing corruption in her regime, she is condemning Shadinata. Because a Shadin country must oppose corruption. A Shadin country must be engaged in the fight against corruption. And anyone who condemns those who condemn corruption is, of course, condemning Shadinata, is opposing Shadinata, is attacking the spirit of Shadinata. As I said yesterday about Lawrence Lifshultz, I said, fuck off Lawrence Lifshultz. How and when did the American spies network become harbingers, carriers of freedom for other countries? I spent about 3 or 4 months traveling across England in the 1970s, recording, observing, interpreting the accounts being spoken by Philip A.G. Now, Philip A.G. was a CIA agent in South America, and he had published a book called Inside the Company. And Philip A.G.'s publication of that book and other accounts of how the CIA operates to sabotage democratic countries was rewarded by the UK government, fronted by James racist criminal Callaghan, allowing his co-racist moron Marlin Rees to sign the deportation order against Philip A.G. Philip A.G. was one of the two American kind of campaigners that were being treated for attacks by the UK government. One was Philip A.G. and the other was Mark Housenball. Housenball is not spelled as a Hussein. Its Housenball is spelled as Hosenball. Mark Housenball was attached to an American New York-based outlet. Remember, this was the 1970s, way before the internet and all that. Mark Housenball and Philip A.G. were the two that were deported from Britain. Well, I was not far from deportation because Marlin Rees had ordered my deportation in the same year, but I managed to organize, mobilize a kind of campaign that made him backtrack. I hadn't done anything wrong, but it was just a vendetta. As a campaigner, they thought that I justifiably was targeted for deportation. Anyway, for the few months that I traveled across England, out of principle and political solidarity and curiousness, I knew that that is what Philip Agee was saying about the CIA was exactly what the 99% of the world's population outside of the USA did believe about the CIA. Now, in Pakistan today, Imran Khan is saying that we don't want the CIA to interfere with our country. Now, Imran Khan is not alone. He should not be just saying about Pakistan. He should be saying that the CIA should be banned from the whole world. Because if America is democratic, if America is adhering to the founding declarations of the United Nations Organization of 1948, then the USA should not be operating any CIA operations. Number one. Number two, if the USA is actually concerned about helping the people in Asia and Africa and other parts of the world overcome hunger, poverty, famine, starvation, that the Americans should be showing active solidarity with the various movements, various issues, various projects that are against hunger and famine, and so on. If the American state could do that, then the perception across the world that the Americans are the worst bullies in the world, that perception would legitimately disappear. So who in the USA is doing this? Who in the USA is or are leading such a campaign to convert the USA into such a society? Nancy Pelosi, not Kamala Harris. Nancy Pelosi has been undermining Kamala Harris. But even when she has been doing some things, allegedly in the name of democracy and freedom, like appearing in Taiwan, Nancy Pelosi is not disowning the imperialistic apparatus that the USA state operates anywhere. Now, who is going to expose Nancy Pelosi and to replace her? We said all of these are world-class issues and events and comments. These are not said in the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Guardian or the Le Monde or any of the other Western European outlets or television channels. KhoodeelaarTV campaign is a world-class, unique platform sharing these world-class thoughts and opinions and observations for the whole world, for liberation. It's not just Hakiki Azad Pakistan. We want Hakiki Azad and fair world as a whole. We shall be talking about the various judicial, what is called jurisdictions, including the roles played by the various Supreme Courts and higher courts in the USA, UK, other parts of the world, and including in Pakistan, in due course. We shall be talking about the role of the so-called climate change compliant regimes, which you say are not really complying with the climate change requirements. And we shall be updating on the call for justice for the criminals who harassed and confected the lies against baby Angel Geronimo. We shall be asking for the prosecution of everyone involved in rubber stamping the lies against the baby Angel Geronimo. And we shall be asking for full and due and sufficient compensations for Helen MacDonald. To begin with, there are other demands that we shall be adding to those demands. So this is how long? This is 2 hours and 7 minutes, I think. And we're coming to close this particular edition at 23:06 GMT. And it's GMT on Sunday, the 25th of September 2022. And when we move to the British Standard Time, it is Monday, the 26th of September. It's 6 minutes past midnight into Monday. So until the next edition, this comes to an end. KhoodeelaarTV television channel, broadcasting on the theme of Baby Angel Geronimo.